This is the question and answers video for the handWavey video. You can watch it ad-free on Patreon, link in the description below. I want to clear up 2 points of confusion that have been coming up fairly regularly. The first one is the difference between the Leap Motion and handWavey. The Leap Motion is this device here. This is what tracks your hand movements, and it does it very, very precisely. It does it with tracking the individual bones in your hand. No, it's not using X-rays or anything. It's just using a couple of infrared cameras and some infrared LEDs, and then it's tracking your hand in 3D. And it tracks the way the hand moves and all of this type of stuff, and then it derives the XYZ roll picture of all the different bones within your hand. By contrast, handWavey is an open source application that I've written. It talks to that Leap Motion device, and it gets all that information that the Leap Motion device has worked out, and then it goes and makes intelligent decisions based on that information. It's quite important to understand that differentiation, because it will help guide your understanding of what's possible and what's actually new. To be clear, Leap Motion was founded in 2010, and handWavey was released just a few days ago. While the response on Reddit was overwhelmingly positive, there was some confusion about the target audience, so let's be clear. I'm not trying to tell anyone that they need to ditch their keyboard and mouse. I'm just saying, hey, I've made this, I think it's pretty cool, and if it interests you, or if it would be useful to you, you probably know who you are. I'm Kevin, but I mean, you probably know that you're interested. Bad joke. It's not that funny! Okay. It's not that funny. So to be clear, I have 2 target audiences for handWavey. One is cool, which is the camp that I fall into. And the second one is to make it available for accessibility related challenges. As I said in the main video, I don't want to go and list out what those are because I don't want to be prescriptive, I'm just not qualified for that. But I did want to make it available so that people who are affected by those challenges can make an intelligent decision about whether or not it's right for them. Also, let's cover a couple of updates. In the main episode, I said this. It should be recognised that I'm not actually the first to do this. When I began the project, I actually did quite an extensive search looking for other projects. Maybe with the possibility of extending something to make it do what I wanted. But everything I found was very, very clearly in the proof of concept level. And now it turns out that just a couple of weeks before I released the video, Ultraleap have just started pushing a program of their own called TouchFree that does something very similar. From their marketing material, it looks like it operates in a very similar way to my touchscreen mode. As I mentioned in the main episode, I moved away from this idea very early on in the process because it was nowhere near precise enough for the use cases that I had in mind. But I can imagine it working very, very well for the use cases and target audience that they are marketing towards. The other update to tell you about is that by the time this video comes out, I'll have a whole heap of updates that are available in handWavey. Those include a couple of bug fixes, the most important one for me being the scrolling. I have just had one of the most fantastic facepalm moments that I've had in a long time. So yeah, now you see it's not jumping around or anything like that. It is just staying where I put it. And if I let go, no jump or anything like that, it is just there. I've added some more accessibility gesture layouts which will make it much easier for some different use cases. Push the secondary hand all the way through, and now I can actually move the primary hand to get the cursor. Shaking motion there. All the while, we're shaking our hands quite a bit and it goes where we want it to go. And at least one new notification theme that makes it much more interesting to hear those notifications. So with that out of the way, let's go and have a look at the questions. There are no questions on Patreon for this project, so let's just move straight on to Reddit. There was a question about testing with actual users who are faced with the accessibility challenges that I alluded to earlier. So the bottom line is that I've tested with far fewer users than I'd like to, but I have developed this in close collaboration with someone who recently went through a life-changing event, and the only way that it would be possible to cater to such contrasting challenges is to make it highly configurable. So the whole way through the development process, I've been very clear on trying to make sensible defaults for everything, but make as much as possible configurable. This then means that there's a lot of configuration available that can be changed, and it may be a little challenging to find the right configuration for your situation. To address that, I've created lots of example configurations with documentation about what they're for, and how to use them, and how to apply them, and all of this type of stuff. That's all sitting within the repository. So if you have an idea about something you want to try, there's probably an example there that you can begin with. But the bottom line is that it's very, very, very configurable. So it probably will be adaptable to your needs, but you won't know if you don't look. This is also a good moment to remind you that it's really important to learn how to be proficient in it, so there's a dedicated video just to get you started with that. So there are lots and lots of questions about, don't your arms get tired? And this was something I expected as well. And I wasn't really sure how to solve it, and so I thought, well, I'm just going to put that aside. I'm going to try using it, get it running well, and find out what the problem actually is and how much of a problem it actually is. And the answer is, for my usage, it's not a problem. But for many users, it probably will be. The key difference is that I tend to use the mouse for very short bursts. When I filmed the intro skit, I spent hours getting those shots again and again and again and again until I got them right. And to be clear, that was my acting skills, not any problem with handWavey. But yeah, it took a long time to get the shot to look the way I wanted it to look. The result of that was that I was holding my arm out for a long period of time, for several times in a row, and I did feel my arm getting quite tired as a result of that. One of the things I have found myself doing if I'm using the mouse for a long period of time is just sort of sticking my other arm just underneath my elbow, and that gives a really nice level of support. That may have long-term implications though, so it's probably worthwhile talking to an ergonomics expert to find out whether or not that's a good solution or not. Someone suggested maybe using an armchair with nice comfy arms would be a good solution. My gut feeling is that probably that would work well. The key things you need to get right are that you have nice freedom of movement so you can move your hand very easily, and that the sensor is unobstructed. Probably the way I would do that, they were talking of moving your arm forward to reach the sensor. I would probably put it more to the side, so then you swing your arm out to reach the sensor. But again, it's worth talking to an ergonomics expert to get the best ideas for how to proceed with that. There are a few assertions flying around with comparisons between a traditional keyboard and mouse versus this and what's possible with this or that. If you're feeling that way, this probably isn't the right tool for you. Again, I'm not trying to tell anyone that they need to ditch the tools that work for them. I'm trying to say this is an additional tool which may be useful for you, it may not be. No worries either way. Someone asked if you could change the resolution. What they were meaning by this is, if you think about with a mouse, they have the DPI setting, which is the dots per inch, and that's how many measurements you get for every inch that you move the mouse. Changing this value can change how quickly the mouse cursor moves, and how accurate you can be with moving the mouse cursor. The trade-off is that if you make the mouse cursor very accurate, it takes a long time to move anywhere. And if you make the mouse cursor really quick to be able to move around the desktop, then it's very hard to be precise, and you end up getting tension in your hand quite quickly. The answer is yes. There are actually a few settings that work together to help you really nail the behavior that you want. The default behavior biases towards precise, but has strong acceleration, so then you can really throw the mouse cursor around just by a little bit of a flick of your hand. But it's very easy to just gently move your hand, and the cursor will just gently move around. To put that in perspective, I'm actually more precise with handWavey than I am with 30 years of experience with a traditional mouse. That's saying something. Someone commented, "Enhance!" Someone asked about using other hardware like a webcam. I've also thought about this. The reason I've stuck with the Leap Motion controller is that they've done an amazing job at getting all of the information just from literally 2 infrared cameras and presenting that in a way that is very easy to work with. However, while I haven't found them, it wouldn't surprise me if there are other products on the market that could do something very similar. So I have written handWavey in such a way that it is very easy to add support for other hardware if that comes along at some point in the future. If you want to do that, feel free to reach out and we can work together to make it easier, because there are a couple of assumptions that will need to be updated. Minor assumptions, but they do need to be updated. I'm going to bring 2 separate groups of questions together here. A few people commented on having used this about 15 years ago. They also made assertions about how accurate it was. So referencing the beginning of this video, there are 3 separate things at play here. handWavey has only been out for a few days, so that's not what you used. Leap Motion has been around since 2010, so that's 12 years. That's not what you used. But let's assume that it was 12 years ago that you used it. Leap Motion was in very early days at that stage, so it's not fair to judge its accuracy now based on then. And third, you would have had to use an application with Leap Motion to get the mouse movement, and like I pointed out in the main video, the time investment that I've put into this has not been making it work. That was quite quick and trivial. The time investment that I've put in has been about making it work well. And when I say well, I mean really well. The other part of that group was someone making assertions about what gestures are what. Hopefully that's all clear now. It wasn't my program that you were using, so maybe you'll be happier with this given that I've put in so much effort into making it accurate. But regardless, if you do give it a go, make sure you spend some time to get proficient with it. There is a video to help you with it, and I highly, highly recommend watching that. There are a few comments about the movies in the future, but there was one particular comment that just struck really nicely for me. So it reads, "Just like older movies, fiction turns out to be quite close to reality in the future. Our fiction will be our son's reality. Tech is really amazing." And this just hits the essence of what the RandomKSandom series is all about. It's to explore stuff that's just really cool. Sometimes it'll be really useful, sometimes it won't be. This has really good accessibility potential. Maybe it'll be useful for that, maybe it won't. But it's freaking cool to play around with. I hope to continue using it for a long time into the future, but even if I don't, it's been really, really fun to play with. It's been really nice to sort of see this from a user's perspective as I go along and go, this isn't working well enough, what can I do to fix it? For some of those problems it's really easy to figure out what you actually need to do right then and there, and some you may have anticipated. And then there's others which you just haven't thought of yet, and you have to go and think about it for a few days before you come back with a really good answer. Or you think you have a really good answer, and then you go and try it, for example my touchscreen configuration, and then realise that, hey, this can work so much better, and you go in a completely different direction. So it's been a really cool learning process, and yeah, this series is about sharing that. As always, there's an ad-free version of this and all my other videos on Patreon, and there's a whole lot of Patreon exclusives. Anyway, I'm Kevin, this is RandomKSandom.